Perfect. Right, guys. So you should be able to see my slides now. You should be able to see my face also. I'm just waiting for the last few people to just trickle in. So let's get started anyway. So thank you all for joining. This is obviously our webinar on how to better scope out your inventory clients, and we'll take a deep dive into what all that means. My name's Guy Earnshaw, and I'm the Senior Solutions Consultant here at BlueHub. And what that kind of obscure title means is I'm tasked with helping people select the systems alongside Callum, another member of our team. So we help with our clients when they come in at that early stage, understanding what they need, and then working with them more formally under paid consultancy. And many of you will already know about BlueHub and the work we do around inventory, but for those that don't, or maybe slightly more unfamiliar, our background is in software consultancy and development, and now we specialize in the cloud ecosystem of inventory and accounting apps. So we generally work with Xero, a few other cloud accounting apps, and then we work with 4 or 5 different inventory products. So this is exactly what we specialize in. I personally, this is all I do, is work on the inventory apps that work with Xero. And we're coming off fresh off the back of another XeroCon. This was actually our 4th year in a row, and we loved it just as always. And last year we did a really popular webinar, our most popular one yet, that was on the topic of stock success stories, where we profiled businesses that had made the move to Xero plus an inventory app. And they'd moved from all kinds of different backgrounds. We had clients move from Sage 200, people move from spreadsheets and paper-based systems, and even a few clients move from really old systems like Microsoft DOS-based systems. So in that webinar, we really looked at like the end result and the journey we take people through, but we didn't really get into the detail. And over the last year, I've been speaking to loads of different accountants who work with our clients. And my general feel on this space is that many accountants aren't really aspiring to do full-scale inventory implementations and do all the integration work and training and support. But many do now have an ambition to help their clients with the system selection and which app to pick. And many are now aware that it's more complex selecting an inventory app than it is, say, selecting a purchase invoice automation tool. So they're asking us now if they can shadow our sessions with their clients, which we always welcome. But I just wanted to put this now into a webinar, into a bit of training material to hopefully help build on what you guys are already doing around this space. So a few assumptions that I'm going to make, and then we'll take a few polls to understand the audience a bit more, is you guys are really at the tip of the spear as far as accountants are concerned, and that is the majority of the audience are largely UK-based accountants. We do have a few from different countries on board and a few business owners. But in general, I'm pitching this at accountants. And when I say you guys are really the tip of the spear, I genuinely mean it. So in the UK, according to the Financial Reporting Council, there are over 350,000 accountants registered in the UK. I think that excludes AAT. And I think the amount that attended XeroCon this year was around 3,500. That's 1%. And then you guys are the faithful few that have really come from XeroCon and then to understand about inventory apps. So some of you may be laughing a little bit, thinking that you're at the tip of the spear of this kind of cloud innovation in accounting, especially the English audience, I'm sure. But the reality is you are, and you're accountants, and we can just look at those numbers and see that you really are like quite focused now on the cutting edge of this. And many of the firms we speak to are still struggling to onboard their clients with Xero, let alone looking at doing some of this higher level work. Okay, so I'm just going to jump back to Zoom a second and just fire up some of these polls. So we're just going to run through a series of questions now. So everyone just enter your answers as they pop up, and then we'll launch the results so we can all see. So we're launching the poll. So the first question is, did you attend XeroCon this year? So that should have popped up on all of your screens. If you just start to answer those, I should start to see that come through on my side as well. Can everyone see the poll? That popped up. Oh wow, great. Okay, yeah, the answers are coming in. So we'll give it a few moments, maybe like a full minute for everyone to get their answers in. It looks like I see the results once you've completed everything. So Great. Okay, yeah, it's coming in thick and fast now, guys. So I'm really keen to do these polls just so we can pitch the rest of this presentation so I understand where everyone's at. Okay, just look for a few more to come through. Oh, nice, guys. There was a good little chain of answers that came through there. See the charts come up. Fantastic. Okay, so I think we'll close down there. I can still see there's a few more answers coming through. Actually, we'll give it a couple more seconds. I can see a couple of people are saying they can't see the poll. Sorry, guys, I don't really know what to say. This is my first time using the Zoom webinar, so we are doing one more poll later, so maybe it'll pop up. Okay, but we'll end that now. So I'm going to share these results, and then we can all hopefully see this together. So we can see that the majority of the audience did attend XeroCon, but not everybody. By far, we can see the most well-known app is Unleashed. Not much of a surprise there. And a lot of you know Deer as well, Tradegecko and Stitch Labs. That's kind of the breakdown I expected to see. Stitch Labs is more of a US-centric product. VQ is used in the UK, actually. I think they have a UK team, but it's a lesser-known app. Unleashed are definitely the most well-marketed and well-known in the accounting space for sure. And a bit of a surprise to me actually with how well Deer is known. It's out of the systems we work with, we've done by far the most Sin 7 and Deer implementations. We'll cover why I think that is later on. I think it's essentially they're the most complex apps and we get more complex jobs coming to us. Have you ever helped clients with apps before? Yes, introduce an expert is the majority of the answers. That's fantastic. And a good spread over the rest. Okay, good. Some of you guys have helped with paid scoping. That's really interesting. And then have you helped a client with apps generally? Purchase invoice automation been really popular. Okay, yeah, so I mean the adoption here on the apps is so much above the average in accounting firms, so it really does show that you guys are like quite ahead of the crowd here with this, so that's really cool. So any questions, guys, feel free to keep them coming in, but I will get to them at the end. Okay, so fantastic. Okay, so we'll do a few more, or one or two more polls actually as we go through this later on in the session. But a few more things before we dive into it. One, like I said, ask questions throughout this. I'm going to get to them at the end. I won't answer them as I'm going through because it's too much flipping around. And then the main thing that everyone's getting here, so if you're attending today or if you've registered to attend and you're watching this later, you will all receive a fact find form from us. So this is something that you can take to your meetings after watching this to help facilitate and give a bit of structure to these conversations. So this is what you're going to receive. You'll actually be able to type in these note sections, and it just orders out into different pages the flow of how we feel these conversations are best facilitated. So starting with their aims for moving systems, then looking at their pain points from the current systems and who's going to be involved on their side, and all the way through to detailed product information, how to manage stock, how to manage sales. So it covers pretty much everything, and we're going to go through a lot of these major sections and headlines in the presentation today, but you're all going to get a copy of that sent after this. So, right, let's get into the meat of it then. So who does this apply for, right? So as you might be aware, it's going to apply to product-based businesses. So we're looking at like wholesalers, retailers, manufacturers, e-commerce businesses, importers, distributors, right? That kind of covers the full range. Manufacturers kind of sit in their own separate world slightly, which I'll touch on later on in this session. But the vast majority of the jobs we do are wholesalers / import distribution companies and e-commerce companies. That is the vast majority of the jobs we complete, and now we're starting to work with more manufacturers. As far as size is concerned, these are just rough numbers, but in general, you're looking at like 500,000 to 30 million is the upper limit. We do have a few clients bigger than that, but it tends to be stepping out of the Xero world there. 3 to 50 employees, again, these are just guideline numbers. And often they're coming from the likes of Sage. If you're in the UK, that's the majority of the systems we're replacing are old, different Sage systems and spreadsheets, server-based, bespoke and semi-bespoke systems, okay? So this is like the standard profile. It's a nice wide range of clients that this benefits. And within the specific sectors, we've worked with everything from fashion clients to manufacturers of gates to adult toy clients. We've seen it all, but they tend to fall into these main different sections. Sorry about that if I was wearing headphones. So why do the businesses require an inventory app? So as they say on the tin, they need to manage their stock. But the main purpose of these apps is actually order processing. So managing all the different sales channels, pulling that into one central location, sending it to the relevant warehouses, allowing you to do a whole pick, pack and ship process. So I like to think of these as inventory and order processing tools. Now, why do they need an app in the first place? Well, many of the systems we're replacing are kind of all-in-ones, a bit like Sage. It does accounts, does a bit of stock, a bit of manufacturing. So they're used to having a system that has it all. And when we come to bring Xero into the business, that brings a lot of benefits around the accounts, and they like the remote access, but it's more limited around stock control and order processing, and especially around manufacturing. So we then have the suite of add-ons that we can use. I think there's 27 different apps on the marketplace that are in the inventory section. And yeah, we then need to pair it up based on their major requirements. So the main requirement areas that we'll see and that we've split down on that form are things like their sales channels. So nearly, I think all clients we work with will have 2 or more sales channels. That might be a Shopify website and a trade counter. It could be email and phone orders and an Amazon site. I think our largest client has over 35 different sales channels integrated with their Sin7 account in that case. They're managing different price tiers, not just managing set price tiers, but also customer specific pricing and discount, quantity-based discount deals. They're real common requirements. Documents, which is something that comes up a lot from accountants that we struggle to facilitate, like picking slips, delivery notes. Managing the order process as well, not just from a quote to an order to an invoice, but managing all of the delivery labels and everything around there. Warehousing is getting more and more complex as the popularity of third-party warehouses are growing. And then obviously managing things like your delivery, your product data reporting, right? So at a very high level, these are the sections of the business it covers, and we'll take deeper dives into those as we work through this. But the main thing you'll notice is with an inventory app versus something like a receipt bank, we're covering a much broader range of requirements. And as we're covering a broader range of requirements, each individual client is going to have slightly different requirements along that range. So that makes the whole job much, much more complex. So this is how it really differs to me from app selection. So this diagram or matrix here, I think is a really useful tool, and it's used throughout all kinds of different decision making, but I think it really applies well to this scenario. So if we imagine this what arrow on the right hand side is what the client needs, their requirements, and then how we will resolve it, how the system will match those requirements. Something like a receipt bank, while it's a very powerful tool, falls into a simple app selection in my eyes, because it covers a narrow range of requirements. It takes documents, purchase invoices, allows the user to scan them and move them in to the correct accounts on the purchase ledger into Xero. So any business that's going to have a purchase invoice coming in would likely benefit from one of the purchase invoice automation tools. So it's a small set of requirements and a small set of solutions. So with these type of simple apps, we can take a one-to-many approach, and this is what most firms do. They'll make a partnership with Receipt Bank or with Auto Entry, and then they'll roll that out to the vast majority of their clients because it will fit that function for most businesses, right? We don't all need a unique water utility provider. We just use whichever our local water utility is because we all have a very similar need, right? But something more complex, like your insurance, for example, is going to be much more fit to your specific needs. So when we're looking at inventory apps in the scale of app selection, they're much more in this complex range. Another definition of a complex problem is that there are both known unknowns and unknown unknowns. And with such a broad set of requirements, if you think we're covering the entire sales department, purchase department, warehousing, management reports, accounts, it's just the sheer fact that not even all the people in the business will understand what they need in every single scenario. So there will be unknown unknowns that pop up within these projects that you have to be able to be agile and resolve. So I think this diagram helps us understand our simple apps, Receipt Bank, Futurely, the reporting purchase invoice tools. Our complicated apps are probably something more like project management. And then our complex apps are things like your inventory tools and manufacturing apps. Okay. So the process that we follow, as soon as a client comes to us, or a lead, a new opportunity, an accountant brings a client to us, we have kind of a 4-step process that we take them through to select an app. So first is the initial contact, where we're gathering the first bit of high-level details. We would then, if it's a client we're going to move ahead with, we'll then look to set up a meeting, and prior to that, we'll give the client some homework so that they can prepare themselves and prepare the requirements and process information to facilitate that meeting better. Then we go into our deep dive scoping meeting, which is where that requirement document comes in, the fact find, and then we document our follow-up, and this is quite a key part because it allows you to have a shared record between you, the client, and the solution provider as well. So it saves you getting oversold, overpromised, and things like that. So as you all may know, at Bluehood, we offer everyone a free discovery call. So anytime you think you have a client that's a little bit too complex for you to help with, or you just think they value using someone like ourselves, we do this initial contact for free. So we call it a free discovery session. We have a call with the accountant, a call with the client, and then we make a free personalized recorded demo of the app that we think would be most suitable before we go into any kind of paid work. So that's how we formulate our initial contact. So before we dive into each step of the process, I just want to quickly cover the psychology of system selection. So this is from working with clients. So a common term you'll hear is must-have and nice-to-have features. It's obviously really important. We need to know what are the absolute must-haves, what can't we live without, and what are the things that we like to introduce to a system, a new thing, a nice idea. What you'll find with people is we all get very excited about the new, the nice to have. That will be something that gets related to with a lot of passion and energy and interest. And many of the must-haves, things the business does every single day and has used the current system for 10 plus years, that can often get forgotten by the client. So it's important that we provide the structure to weed out all of those little must-have requirements and let them and then also manage their expectations with the nice to haves, which leads on nicely to this. Expectation setting, I see this as the biggest part of my role. It's making sure that everybody's clear on the level of solution they can expect for the budget that we're looking at. And the reality with these systems is never before were small and medium businesses able to access such powerful inventory tools. When we made bespoke systems, we charge a few $100,000 to build a bespoke inventory app. The functionality wasn't nearly as advanced as something like Xero or Sin7, and now businesses can get access to that from a few hundred a month rather than needing all that capital outlay. The downside with these systems, while they're very feature-rich, very powerful, and constantly getting updated, is they are off the shelf and somewhat rigid. So it means that unlike in the world of bespoke software, we can't come in and tailor it afterwards and fix problems. We need to make sure that the shoe is a good fit because we can't tailor it afterwards, okay? It's also important to set people's expectations around time and cost and also the end result they can get. So for most businesses, if you change systems every 5 years, that's very frequently. Even experienced business people won't have gone through this process very much. And a lot of people will think that it's software. You just click a button, you just write a rule, you just make it do the thing you need it to do. And they don't understand that whilst software could potentially cover everything the business needs, there's a cost scale to that as well. So often, and I found this as well at the start of my career, when we're in this early stage, and I see a lot of accountants take this slight issue, is where we'll start speaking to the client and we'll start to get excited with them. we'll start to talk about how these purchase invoice automation tools will save you all the time in the world. And if an error goes in, someone will fix it on their end. And that now you can have chasing done automatically for you. And we can paint this overly glamorized picture of what the end result will look like of them just sat on a beach, drinking a cocktail, watching all their automations fire off. And something that we've come to let businesses know is that these systems will provide a lot of benefits, will reduce admin greatly, but they are a platform for you to build your real life business processes around. And that lets them know that there's still going to be manual effort to be done to run your day-to-day business. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. Then you've got memory. So this is really key for both you and the client. You need to keep a certain amount of momentum when you start this. You need to be able to make sure the client's got enough space over a few weeks to answer all your questions and go through this system selection, because otherwise day-to-day business gets in the way for both of you, and you will start to forget the context of what you discussed and agreed. Even if you have documented it, a huge part of this whole space isn't just a list of requirements and how they match features, but it's how the actual business processes flow through those requirements. And that requires a lot of context. So that memory is really important to be conscientious of. Next thing is, you're busy and the client's busy. So my suggestion is to book out your initial contact, that meeting, in one go, so you can set through a few weeks to just finalize this decision. Because if it stumbles on over months, you're likely to not have a good result, and likely the client just won't go anywhere. I think around 15% of our clients this year we spoke to over 12 months ago, and it's just the nature that people are very, very busy. So, and then the other side is, you'll get this with a lot of direct-owned businesses, they're impatient. I literally spoke to someone this very morning who wants their system to go live tomorrow. Luckily they're a startup, and likely this is something we can facilitate, but in general, if this was an established business, they're going to need a few months. So again, setting those time expectations is just as important as setting the cost expectations. Right, guys, so let's get into it. So the initial contact is when we first speak to the client. You've maybe given them a demo of Xero for the first time. You've just done your quarterly management report meeting. You just had contact with them, and they brought up that they might need an inventory system to improve Xero or to move to Xero. So what do we need to cover? So we'll keep it at quite a high level. You need to document what are their current systems, what are they using right now. And make sure you gather everything here, not just their main systems. If they say Sage, make sure we then follow up with, are we using any spreadsheets, any other systems, any external systems like purchase portals for suppliers, things like that. Get a full list of all the systems they use. Understand what in their eyes are their main requirements. What is the main thing the system must cover, and what do they need? As an accountant, you can understand their budgets better, right? You're usually sat next to their financial statement. You can have an educated conversation about their budget. If somebody's got hundreds of thousands that they could spend on software, in my opinion, they should. They should go and spend that, get a bespoke system, or get a NetSuite, get a SAP, and you will gain from the benefits of all their advanced automations, customized workflows, and all of those great functionalities from enterprise level systems. Someone can genuinely afford that as a business, and they would benefit from it. They should use it. And same on the other end. If somebody has only got £200 a month that they can spend, and maybe a couple of thousand to be able to get set up and train everybody, then you're going to want to find a system that's got an implementation team in-house. So having that budget conversation with them at the start is really important, and knowing how broad the range of costs would be from spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on bespoke software and large enterprise systems to spending maybe £100 a month on one of the more simplistic inventory apps. Then you need to ask them about their budget. Many clients or accountants come to us and say, what could they be expecting to pay with not even knowing what their current systems are or main requirements are? It's really important to get at least from them some gauge of what they'd be willing to spend on a monthly basis and as an initial outlay. Next thing is gather their timeframes. What are they expecting? I found conversations I was having 3 years ago, people always wanted it next week. I find in general now people are looking months ahead, which is quite nice. But in general, we find that most mid-sized jobs, it takes us around 3 months in total to fully complete. Larger jobs, it's around 4 months, and small jobs around 2. What's their aim of moving to the system? You know, what are their frustrations? What are their problems with the system? What are they hoping it will achieve? And then we can start to understand, you know, where they're going to sit. So from this, from their main requirements, we can start to understand, well, where do they sit in our complexity scale as an inventory job? So not just in apps in general, we're going to go back to that same Stacy matrix and start to group now our different inventory clients. So once I'm coming off a call, my initial chat, I'm trying to understand, is this a simple job, complex job, or is it somewhere in between? So what we can see now is, going back to this chart, we're going to look at this just purely as an inventory scale now. So simple inventory requirements, complicated and complex. So I've done an oversimplification on this next slide. But I think it's quite a useful guide for us to start to give numbers to what we class as something that was simple, complicated, or complex. So to give us a basic guide, something that's simple, I'd say just has one native integration. So we don't class Xero as a native integration. That's just part of the package, right? So if you think you've got something like Xero, TradeGecko, and then Shopify, this would be a one integration, just Shopify or just Amazon or just manual entry of orders. A single order process, meaning that they don't also do B2B and B2C, or they don't do sales agents and staff sales. Making sure that there's no specific costing or stock accounting requirements, as in they don't need to work in actual costings versus average. They don't necessarily need it to be FIFO or batch or serial controlled. Often these businesses will be under 1.5 million, if not a bit smaller, on a turnover scale, and under 5 users or 5 employees. And likely we'll just need to price tiers. They're not going to need things like contract pricing per customer or quantity-based discounts. Someone in the middle, someone who's complicated, they're likely to have less than 5 native integrations. So you might have a Shopify, a couple of Amazons, some email and phone orders. They're going to have multiple order processes. So maybe some e-commerce sales along with some marketplace sales. There's no use of third-party warehouses, that's what 3PL means, or EDI, which is how you electronically integrate with people like Tesco, John Lewis, big retailers. They're likely to be under 5 million in turnover and around 10 users, and they might start to include things like contract pricing and discount pricing. And then someone who's complex, they're going to have more than 5 integrations, likely to have third-party connections with those types of warehousing companies or large retailers, multiple locations, maybe in multiple countries. So by locations, I mean a warehouse, a stock holding of some form. They'll start to use Amazon and eBay, which brings in a lot of complexity. Likely to be over 5 million in turnover. If they have any kind of manufacturing, even if it's a really small business, that's going to move them into complex and the natural costings. So again, as a high-level approach, each of these, if it's inventory, would require at least some form of scoping meeting. If it's a simple project like this, it's likely to be around an hour to just work through the fact find and get a bit of a spec. My approach for something like this would be to then take your spec to the different providers that have an in-house team, maybe someone like Unleashed, that have a really nice presence in the UK. You can take that to them or take them to a partner like us, and we can check if it's suitable and refer them on. And they'll be able to help them with all the onboarding in-house. They have a few implementation partners that they work with if someone needs a little bit more help. And likely, if you just get them to check off which requirements they cover and don't, going direct to an inventory app once you've scoped is a fair approach with your simple apps. With our complicated apps, this is where you're going to want to do a full scoping meeting. It's likely to take a couple of hours. You may want to consider doing a paid approach because you're also going to have to spend some time doing your documents after. And if you haven't done any kind of scoping before, this is where you'd want to, at least for the first couple, partner with someone like Bluehub or a professional software partner who'll be able to allow you to shadow them as we do, so that you can kind of see how we structure these chats. Next one is a complex job, and my suggestion is, even if you've done one or two of these jobs, any kind of manufacturer, anyone with over 5 integrations, you find someone like ourselves to at least work with in that initial phase, to run through that first chat with the client to make sure everything's understood at a high level. And yeah, anyone that falls into this category is a great candidate for one of our free discovery calls, as are anyone who's in complicated. Okay, great. So I can see more questions are coming through, guys. Keep them firing through. I will come to them at the end. We'll have a good session on them. So next we've had our initial chat with the client. We then ranked them into these different sections, and we've arranged a scoping meeting. If it's a simple one, just an hour, up to around 2 to 4 hours for some of the larger ones. So to prepare the client for it, we're going to get them to do some homework. So to get them to do this, we're going to ask them to do things like list out their current systems and spreadsheets. If you're dealing with a director, as many of you will be, I know I do, you have to make sure they're speaking to at least someone in each department, that they're speaking to someone in sales, purchasing, warehousing, to gather the actual requirements. Most directors will understand what they hope the system will do, what the aim of the company is, and we'll have a lot of focus on nice to have features. But as far as the nitty gritty of what we need the system to must do, they're often not the best source for that. Then we'll ask the client to list and rank their own requirements, to begin mapping out their processes, and also with that mapped processes, detailing any screenshots. So I've actually got an example of the homework guide we give to our clients. So as soon as I've spoke to someone, we then send them a quote at this stage for the scoping meeting, and then we give them this homework prep guide. So we give them a blank sheet for them to work with, and then we provide them with an example. So what we're asking them to do here is just write out things like their aims for the new system, the people that are going to be involved in the process, any specific major requirements, and different clients go into different levels of detail. You know, some people are providers, 10 plus pages of documentation, fully mapped processes. Other people have literally drawn out processes and written everything out on the back of the form and scanned it in. But the point is, you're getting them to think about it before you come down, and getting them to map out the processes is really key. And this is one of the main differences for me in selecting something like an automation tool or a reporting tool, is that it's not just about matching the features, but when are these features required in your process, and what will the knock-on effects be? So process maps are absolutely key. Okay, so heading back into our slides now. We get them to do that homework, send it over to us, and then we can start to fill in the known details of that onto our fact find to prepare ourselves for the chat. So heading now into the meeting, my suggestion is that you go on site to do this. You actually go to their site and you have a walk around the warehouse, and you have a look at their facility. So in stock, in doing our pick and pack, the actual order of that warehouse, whether it has bin locations, how they manage their goods in and goods out, it helps to actually see that. And also with it having such a broad effect, it's also going to, without having such a broad effect, it's going to affect so many people within the business. So it's important that we get buy-in from the team nice and early. Okay. So go on site where you can to facilitate these meetings. So as we covered, this is largely documented within the fact find, and there's quite a lot of different sections for me to cover here. So there's going to be a lot of text on the screen, a lot that pops up, but all of these headers are included on the documents, or at least all of the key ones. But the main thing that I want to point out here is the order that we're going to do things in. So where we like to start our discussion is around the product details. What do the people actually sell? What are the types of products that they sell? Do they assemble? Do they make the products, or are they just buying and selling them? And when you understand what products they physically sell, that's going to tell you a lot about their needs for their system. Okay, so if they're just buying and selling bags of gravel, likelihood is they're not going to need any kind of complex stock control. They're definitely not going to need any kind of traceability or serial number tracking. They're not going to need any kind of bill of materials or anything like that. Each bag's going to come in its own weight. So likelihood is they're not going to need too many different units of measure, which is when we store things in different quantities. It's going to be quite simple. Whereas if somebody sells things like electronic devices, like this microphone, there's going to be much more information they need to track. They're going to need to be able to trace its serial number or numbers. They're going to maybe need to know the value of it as a landed cost if it's imported from China rather than just a mine down the road. They're going to have a lot of different factors. And again, if they're assembling these products or manufacturing them, that's going to implicate whether they're going to need a manufacturing system or an inventory app. So we're pointing that out. We will get to manufacturers again at the end, but anytime your clients are a manufacturer, that becomes a whole different level of complexity. The main question to ask any kind of manufacturer is, are you just looking to track parts, finished pieces and components, or are you also looking to track people and machines? If it's just the former, just finished goods and component stock, likelihood is one of the inventory systems will suit. As soon as someone needs people or machines, they're going to need scheduling, capacity planning, cost allocation, and things like that. So that makes it much more complex and likely would exclude them from any of them purely inventory systems. So key requirements here, types of products, whether they're using different units of measure, so whether that they buy by the pallet, sell it by the case, or maybe also sell it by the individual unit. We need to know if they're working in alternative units of measure. Bill of materials, so that's if they have a finished item with components, or a kit product or a bundle where we get a three-piece suit and we have a jacket, a shirt and a waistcoat that are all separate products, but they can be assembled as a kit or sold individually. Anytime someone is assembling or manufacturing or has a bill of materials, a really key question is, do you have sub-assemblies? So meaning, are any of the components going to include their own bill of materials? That will further limit which systems they have. Traceability, as we've well covered, in barcode scanning. With barcode scanning, this is something that gets a lot of excitement in the world of product sales businesses. And our advice always is that if you're not already barcode scanning, don't bring barcode scanning in initially with the new system. It's just frankly too much change for everyone to take on board. Nearly all the apps will allow barcode scanning, so it future-proofs it. But if they're not doing it currently, do not bring in barcode scanning in that first phase, and that's a key part of setting expectations around product data. Okay, so moving ahead then, next section, what are their current systems? Using each department, and again, if people are using spreadsheets, make sure you note that as one of their systems and what the spreadsheet's used for. How long have they had the systems? The longer a business has had a system, and if that system is bespoke or somewhat bespoke, the more complicated the job will be. The hardest jobs we've ever had have always been removing people from legacy bespoke systems. And that's because often the system has been built around their business, automates large functions of their business, and everyone just simply sees that as how a computer works within the company. So if it's been there for 10 plus years, most of the staff just think, well, that's how we do our order processing and it's all automated. So anytime someone's got a bespoke system, we really want to go into quite a lot of detail with what that current system covers and what it doesn't cover. And ideally, you need to make sure they've still got contact with the current developer. So then if someone's got a really old system, it's bespoke, and they have no contact with the developer, even we take on those jobs very hesitantly. What works well? What do they actually like about the system? Most people you're speaking to at this stage, if you've got just scoping, especially if you've got just paid scoping, they're probably not happy with their current system. So you more need to weed out what works well, what actually do you like, and what can't you live without. And that might require you to go over each section of the business: sales, purchase, or quoting, ordering, invoicing, picking, packing, and really breaking it down into each of those levels to understand what works well. What are the main frustrations? Pretty much everyone, there's going to be too much manual processes, too much double entry, lack of connection, and then lack of visibility. For me, when people are moving from Sage, server-based systems, bespoke old legacy systems, they're their main frustrations. Too much manual work, and I can't have visibility over my business. And thankfully, that's what all these cloud apps help with the most, right? They reduce manual entry by having all the integrations work, and then they give you much better visibility over your information through inbuilt reporting suites and reporting apps. What integrations do they already have in place, and which of those integrations are bespoke versus off the shelf? Okay. And what are their double entry points, their main pain points? So where is this happening? Often you'll see that this will be from, say, Amazon to the accounting system, or from their website to updating their stock and spreadsheets. Even generating different documents in certain systems, going from an order to an invoice can require a double entry point. Okay, so where are these syncing? And the reason why we want these is less to make sure the system's a good fit. Same with the main frustrations. This is to help them understand the benefits of the solution too, right? So once we've found out that the system hits all those actual requirements, we can then focus on the broader benefits it gives in process to solve these problems. So on to the next slide. Then we're going to dive into sales. I think this is the best order process to start with rather than purchasing. So start to note down all their sales channels, what's integrated, what isn't, where there's double entry. Understand how they manage price tiers. So again, in this space, you're likely to see people who work with price tiers, meaning I've got my retail price tier, wholesale price tier, and wholesale one, and I can give John wholesale 1 and Bob wholesale 2, and then they get that same price band over all products, right? Price tiers are the most basic way of controlling prices and will fall into that more simple end of the scale. Others are, do they have contract specific pricing where you get a special bespoke rate on all products or certain products with me? Or do they even have things like quantity-based discounts or special time discounts, pre-busy season or post-busy season discounts? So understanding how they manage their sales functionality is often going to be, or their sales pricing functionality is likely to be one of their key limitations or key likes about their current system. Next one is documents, and pricing tiers and documents is certainly going to be the main limitation for anyone that's just on Xero. So documents here, we mean like having multiple order templates, say like a B2B versus a B2C one, or a large enterprise B2B versus a smaller client B2B template, or even having document templates for different parts of the process as well. Understanding how they do their order processing and what the different workflows may be, what sales reports they need, what forecasting they do, if any, and is that based on trends or just actual sales last month? And do they use any kind of EDI or other sales integrations? And this is what we're seeing more and more of, is where even our smallest clients will have some form of relationship, say with like John Lewis or Tesco, as I alluded to before. And by using EDI, they get better rates or more consistent orders. And what EDI does is it allows Tesco to send you an order directly into your system to then produce confirmation and an invoice back to theirs. And it allows to remove double entry or entry on both sides for them and for the client, and often makes them a more favoured supplier. So EDI is really growing in the sales space, as are sales channels like marketplaces. Amazon is a real complex area, especially if people are selling in more than one territory, right? So if they're selling in the UK and the US, and if they're using FBA, and especially if they're doing any kind of FBM work where they're fulfilling it themselves, they're really complex integrations, and that would move them into complex in my eyes. Next section we get to, and again, all of this is documented in those fact finds that you guys are going to receive. Then moving on to purchasing. Do they have one supplier for the most part per product, or are they working on multiple suppliers? If they have multiple suppliers, is it clear that there is one primary supplier, then secondary ones? Or is it just a list of alternative suppliers, and based on lead time and price at that point, they'll assess which one's most suitable? Some of the inventory apps can only work with one stored supplier against an item, but most of them now are bringing in alternative suppliers too, where you can handle different currencies, cost rates, different agreements with them too, like minimum order quantities. So understanding their supplier relationships, and if they have multiple, is really key. Again, what documents do they need for purchasing? What does the warehouse need? And when we say documents as well, this could easily be replaced by a tablet or a phone style app for them. But what are the points of documentation that they currently use and need? Take them through their order processing. So what triggers a purchase? What makes us know that we need to purchase? Is it that we take a walk around the warehouse and we just use our eyes? Some of our smaller clients do. Are we doing forecast reports where we're looking at trends? Are we just looking at minimum and maximum stock levels and trying to keep a base level of inventory? How are we managing that order processing? Do they do any back-to-back orders? That's a bit of an old-fashioned term now, but that's what a lot of clients will call it, a back-to-back. And this would include anything like drop shipping or purchase to order. So that's where I'll receive a sales order from you. I'll then go and generate the purchase order to my supplier, and they'll either send that to you directly, i.e. drop ship, or they'll send it to me, send to you as a purchase to order. Minimum order quantities and order conditions, this is really key. Most of the systems don't cover it. I actually feel like Deer does a really good job with this. So minimum order quantities is going to be key for a lot of like importers, people who are bringing stuff in from overseas. They'll have to order a certain threshold to be able to have that be a confirmed order, and then what purchasing reports do they need, right? So if it's single supplier, most of the reports you're going to need is like stock aging, maybe some sales forecast reports. If they've got multiple suppliers, they're going to want to know about cost difference, margin difference, things like that. And understand another thing actually that I didn't note on here is, do they use any purchase portals? So do they log in to their supplier site to enter orders? That's good to know, because that can sometimes be an automation point, another dual entry that you can help resolve. Okay, so that's purchasing, sales, product data done. Also, ahead of this, you've already caught what their main requirements are, main pain points, right? So we're constantly addressing back to that. Now, warehousing, what's the number of warehouses they have and use? Are they managed, meaning they own and run them, or they rent and run them? They have all the staff and they have to provide the documents and stock the warehouse and go and pick it all? Or are they using a third-party logistics company like FBA with Amazon or Johnson & Johnson or any of the huge like 3PL providers? And I'd say actually now the majority of our clients probably use at least one 3PL provider rather than have their own warehouse. And then understand, is integration required? So most third-party logistics companies, it would more than justify an integration. And a lot of them, especially the bigger warehousing companies, now have internal developers. And if the client turns up with a system with an API like any of the Xero apps, even the most basic ones, they'll usually be able to write a suitable integration with them. And many include that as part of like coming on board as a client now. And if not, it's something that third-party developers like Bluehub can develop for them. So number of warehouses, again, where are they located as well? That's not noted here, but where in the world are they? If you've got multiple different warehouses and then you're selling on different Amazon channels or different websites, we need to make sure then that we can do branch directing, so that all of our UK orders go to the UK warehouse, and all of our US orders go to the US warehouse, or the US northern orders go to the north, and then US southern orders go to the south, right? So we need to make sure we understand where are they located, how do we decide which warehouse to use, and do they correspond with any sales channels? Do they use locations, bin zones, aisles within that warehouse? Most of the systems will cover this. We just need to know, is this something that they're already doing? And what's their pick and pack process? Do they want it to be paper or digital? And again, just like with barcoding, if they're not already working digitally, that first phase of bringing in the system, set their expectations that they shouldn't start working digitally. The guys are already going to have to contend with slightly new document formats and slightly different terminology likely, and a lot of changes for their staff. So our suggestion is always match your current process if that's paper, and then you can use the apps to use their warehouse picking modules if they've got it. But it's just important to ask up front, is that something they're likely to want, so that we can future-proof it? Even though it's not recommended in the first phase, we definitely want to make sure they can have it, right? So understand, what are we currently doing, and then what's our desire, what's our aim? Next, we're looking at dispatch and delivery. So is this managed? Are they going to do it from their warehouse? I mean, they're going to book everything with FedEx and Raw Mail and DPD? Or is this just taken care of by the third-party logistics company? Most 3PLs, they cover it fully for you, and not just the warehouse and picking and packing, but actually the booking of the shipment too. If it is outsourced to a third-party logistics company, and we're going to integrate it, then we're going to need to understand, are they going to pull over a tracking number as well? So if the goods have been shipped with a tracking number, will the third party company be sending that back to us? If so, we need to make sure we can facilitate that in the system. If it's internal, then who are the shipping providers? Quite simply, who are they? And then what is the current process? i.e., do you go directly to their website? Do you have an integration between your systems? Do you print the labels off in-house? And do you do any of your own deliveries of shipments as well? Once you have that, you've got their list of providers. And if it is integrated currently, we're then going to need to look at not just an inventory app, but one of the shipping tools like ShipStation or Ship Theory that will deal with this connection too. So again, as soon as someone's going to bring that element in, managing their own shipping labels, that moves it up the complexity scale again, because it's now going to bring in another app, a shipping aggregator. Okay. So most smaller clients, I find they'll just do this directly with the shipping providers and won't want an integration, but it is becoming more and more of a request that we're seeing. Next one, quite simple. This should be an easy one to facilitate. What are the management reports that they're going to want? So specifically now aimed at accounting. So obviously they're going to want cash flow and things like that are more accounting focused. But what do they need here, right? So a lot of them, they're going to want to know aged inventory. So where is my money tied up currently in stock? What's the margin I'm getting on that? Can I reduce it, sell it, and release some of that tied up cash? Understanding what reports they want and what the business aim is, then we can make sure that that's facilitated. I'd always say that the report's one of the strongest parts of these apps generally in comparison to something like Sage. But again, they can be one of the more rigid elements of the apps. So without getting too technical, the reason why that is that, say an app like Deer, it looks like Deer on the front and it's just one system. But underneath that, there are essentially separate little systems, databases and modules. Now, some of my product data might not necessarily be shared with my purchase order data. So that means that some reports won't allow me to necessarily see my purchase by a certain product detail. So this report wish list, it's really important that we get as much detail as possible and preferably examples of what they're currently doing so that we can match it up to the reports that are available within the system. So definitely an area where you're going to have the most flexibility, but it's also one of the areas where the systems can provide the least workarounds if it can't already provide it. Next one, and this is more in your world, but I actually noticed that a lot of accountants aren't really having this discussion. We might get into, do you want to use FIFO? But there's many more implications of the integrations with the accounting system and the inventory apps. So we need to know what our sales ledger mapping is going to be. So does everything just go to one sales code? Are we splitting that down based on some kind of profile of our customers, say trade customers versus B2C, having that as two separate nominal codes? Or are we going to break it down to the level of our product categories and product types, trainers, shoes, jackets, and have separate nominal codes for that? Or rather than having a complex chart of account structure, are we going to keep a basic sales code and then use tracking categories in Xero to break that up? So it's important to know how we want to record our sales down to our ledgers and to our tracking categories. And same for purchases too, that's not on there, but same thing, how do we want to do our purchase ledger mapping? And I'll come to that in a moment when we get to the accounting method. Next part is stock control. Are we using a first in, first out model? Are we happy to work as an average costing model? Are we looking at doing actual costings with batch and serial allocation? How do we want to manage that? Most clients are going to fall into one of those, right? Really small clients will be happy working in averages. Most will want to work in a first in, first out. And anyone that sells tech, consumables, traceable products in general, they're going to want batch and serial. And then anybody who's a manufacturer or a larger client, they're going to need actual margins, where we're looking at like first in, first out, or batch allocation. The next part is the stock accounting method, and this one's really key and not often discussed. So there's two ways that this can work. One's called a perpetual method and one's called a periodic method. So the periodic method is a more traditional approach. This is where each of our purchases is going to be recorded directly to an expense account, purchase of goods. We will then update our balance sheet asset of our inventory on hand by doing regular stock takes. After we've done that stock take, it will remove the value of inventory that we've sold, less that from the purchase expense, and move it in as a cost of goods sold. So that's where we're recording purchases directly to the purchase ledger, doing stock takes to update our asset account, and then that's going to update our cost of goods sold. And then we have the perpetual method. Now this is more commonly what the apps are using. And this is where we record every purchase directly to the balance sheet as a stock asset. Each purchase of stock is recorded as an asset. And then at the point of that being sold or dispatched, we then generate the journal to remove the value of the goods from the inventory account into cost of goods sold. Now this is called a perpetual method because it means that once you've done an initial stock take, if every purchase and sale is recorded correctly, then you will be able to see your current stock position at any given time. Most people will prefer working in that manner, but many people that are used to working in the more periodic manner, where we're recording everything straight to the purchase ledger, they're either going to want to replicate that, or you're going to want to set their expectations that that's going to change. Some systems will allow you to work in either manner, like Sin7, and other systems will just work in the one method, like Deerworks, because it's a perpetual method. Okay, so that's a really key one. Which accounting method do they want to use? And then finally, for anyone that's doing assemblies or manufacturing, how do we want to track work in progress? So we're going to store all of our component stock maybe as a separate asset account as raw component stock. When we then schedule the manufacture of that items, the value of that will be moved into a work in progress asset account. And then once we complete that, we'll do another journal that moves it into the finished goods account. Now the benefit, the reason why we need to know this going in, is that once set up, the inventory app is going to take care of all of this for you. Every sale that's for a B2B client for a specific product will be recorded to the correct ledger, or if you're using something like Sin7, the correct tracking category. Same for your purchases, right? Everything's going to get recorded to the correct account, and then the systems are going to generate the journals for our cost of goods sold, work in progress, and adjustments. So once we set this up correctly, this is where we'll start to get a lot of benefits and a lot more clarity in our accounts and a lot less double entry and correction. One of the services we provide, and it's really, we sold so many this year, it's taken us all by surprise, is our health checks. So this is for clients that have already moved to either Deer, Sin7, Unleashed, MRP Easy, and they're having some kind of problem, something's not right. We've seen that be just something as simple as the staff aren't confident, to people's stock being off by hundreds of thousands. So for any of your clients that are experiencing problems with their current systems, likely it's going to be down to their integration with the accounting system, most commonly we're finding. So if you do have any clients that have already moved to these apps that are struggling, head to our website bluehook.co.uk and you can arrange a health check call. You can chat to me first, make sure it's suitable, and then we essentially run an MOT on their system, diagnose the problems, then put forward a plan of action. Okay. So a final set of requirements that we're going to touch on, which leads on nicely from work in progress, is manufacturing. Now, I can't say enough how much more complexity comes in with manufacturing. We're actually starting to step into the complex to chaotic or anarchy zone. And that's because now we're going to start factoring in people, machines, scheduling, ability, cost, capacity, payroll. All of this now starts to get intertwined. So the value of our free discovery call really goes up even more when you're working with a manufacturing client. So what we're going to look at here again, current systemization. What are you doing within your current apps? What are you covering on spreadsheets? A lot of smaller manufacturers heavily dependent on spreadsheets. What are their bill of materials requirements? And remember, that's not just a case of bill of materials, yes or no. It's, do we need sub-assemblies within that? Do we need work in progress, right? Some of our knock-on questions. What of your manufacturing is in-house, outsourced, or is it a combination of the two? Are you tracking just materials? Are you tracking people and machines, scheduling? And is there a planning requirement too? So if people are tracking just materials, there's no major planning requirement, we could look at something like Sim7, Deer, Unleashed, Gecko, right? If not, if someone now needs some more of a planning requirement, more of a tracking, more of a people requirement, we would then look at something like MRP Easy, which to us is the only real best-in-class manufacturing app for Xero currently. There's not much to choose from, but it is a very strong tool. Okay, guys, so that's the broad lines of what we're covering. Again, that's going to be covered in our fact find document that you're all going to receive a copy of too. In fact, this is quite a good time for me to pop up one more poll and make sure everyone's still paying attention. I can see a few more questions are coming in. So going down to the second poll, we're going to launch a poll now. And what I'm interested to know is that the fact find you're going to get is a PDF that you can actually type on. I'm keen to understand, would it actually be useful if we made like a A4 printout and that you could take along to your clients? I'm just looking for genuine answers. If you think this is a rubbish idea, you do me a huge favour telling me so, okay? But if you think this would be useful, I'm keen to know, because I think it'd be a really cool bit of merch, maybe, something we could give out at an event. Okay, cool. So we won't have too many more answers coming in, although I can see people answer it. So I'll just end the poll and share the results. So you can see that actually some people would use it. No one actually said no. So just if our marketing person, Jess, is watching, I told you I was right. People are going to love it. So we'll have to make that. Okay. Great. So I'll stop sharing that. Fantastic. So now we've done that, we've gone through that meeting with them, we've filled that fact find form either digitally or in paper, and now you've got all of this research that you've completed from their homework, their processes, your requirements that you've gathered, the conversation that you've had with the ideas that have spurred up, the expectations that you've begun to set. Now we need to document that, okay? Now, this doesn't have to be over the top. There are a few tips that I definitely give to you, and I'll show you some examples of what we do. But it's really important that we at least list out the requirements, rank them as must-haves and nice-to-haves. That's important. So one, the client can confirm, did we get every requirement? And then we can confirm back if we understood your must-haves and nice-to-haves. Gap analysis on their current system. So draw out a chart, let them see what parts their current system covers and doesn't. So if I just pull this up, so this is a suitability grid. You now can create this per client. So we're going to put their requirements down this left-hand side. We're then going to take, say, their current systems. This is the final recommendation, but you'd have their current system, what it covers and what it doesn't, and then an explanation next to anything it doesn't cover as to the gap, what needs to be covered if we were to resolve it. We can then document out their processes. So I've got an example of that too. So we do several different documents as we're going through the process. But one of the key ones we do is this, where we will then write out their processes in score. It's quite small, you can't really see that. But we'll note out their purchase and assembly process here, which is quite a key process, and put each of the steps within the system, the reason why they're doing each of these steps or what it's to achieve. And then we can cover in more detail in our writing further context around these more unique requirements. We also fully document up the requirement list, the conversation too. That's just more of a listed script. And then we do a requirements comparison. So we specialize in just a few of these systems. And as a result, we're able to do a lot of this comparison work ourselves through the team, just through knowledge of the systems. But this is where this has the most value to you guys. So for those simple clients, the ones that we don't need too much scrutiny over, they're not complicated or a complex one, something you were just going to send straight to an inventory app. In this scenario, give them access to your spreadsheet, even let them see the gap analysis of the current system, and ask them to rank their system against it and give you their gap analysis. prior to doing any kind of introduction to their client or a demo, because essentially, just like any company, right, this inventory systems are incentivized to get people to sign up and then to keep them there. The reality in the software world, the world of SaaS software, is there's something called a churn rate or a mortality rate. So churn is when someone's set up using the system who then leaves because it isn't suitable or covering what they wanted. And mortality is the amount of people that leave during the setup of it. Now, inventory systems, because they're so broad and complex, have quite a high mortality and churn rate. And this costs a business hundreds of hours, thousands of pounds whenever we get it wrong. And for us, we would love to work with just one system and send everyone to it, but simply we can't because the requirements are too broad, it's too complex, you need multiple tools to find which one's going to be our glass slipper for that client. And it's not a case of, as well, a glass slipper makes it sound like we're trying to find the perfect fit just to be perfect. It isn't that. It's that if we get the wrong system, it won't cover their day-to-day needs or even their new nice-to-have requirements, and they will leave the system. And it causes so much disruption to a business doing this. And with the sales teams, they're trying to get momentum built, all the sales techniques, lots of yes, lots of agreement, lots of energy, playing into those high expectations to get the sign off. And then the client starts to find out what it does and doesn't do. The biggest benefit you can be to your clients is to help them get visibility from the get-go of what it's going to cover and what it isn't. Because what you'll find is you may take it to them and find out that there's a lot more X's than you thought. But when you show it to them, they might be able to accommodate those missing features and then be interested in a demo. And then both you, the client, and the app are able to move forward on a much better foundation of truth of what the client needs and what they can provide. And we don't get caught up in the momentum of a sales process for something that's likely to be a decision that, if made right, they won't have to change again for 7 to 10 years. So really key that we get this right. And for me, a requirements grid and getting a system to tick off what they do and don't do is really, really important. You can't make a universal tool for this, which I'll come to later. Believe me, if I could, it'd be the best bit of content for our website. But any kind of generic suitability grids, that is not what I'm talking about here. This is unique to every single customer that you're doing, okay? This is, if anything's worth value in this, it's taking this approach, okay? Next part of value is document the processes as we've done, because it's not just a case that they need it to be able to pick and pack, right? They'll need specifics in that. So once an order comes in, we need to be able to print a pick list that shows our bin locations and lets the guys let us know if there's no stock available so that they can put it on back order. Or do the salespeople put it on back order? It's not just the feature, right? It's that process, so very, very key. And then elaborate, as we did in that document, in text on their unique and unusual processes. And we've worked with hundreds of businesses now over the last few years with this. And even the smallest e-commerce clients will have some kind of little quirk, something unique. And usually you can overcome it, but it's worth finding out what that unique thing is, because something you'll hear off a lot of seasoned business owners in this space is, well, we're just like any other business. We buy stuff and then we sell it. Like, yes, but the whole list of processes under that, right? And some of it's going to be quite unique. Okay. So next, how to select an app. So as I've said, send that off to the sales teams or an implementation partner. Ask them to respond back. Anyone who's an implementation partner like ourselves, right, they're going to work with multiple systems. So usually they'll want to have a chat, get to know the detail a bit more and kind of isolate one of those systems and then give you a comparison of that one system. And let them give you any workarounds that will be required for any features that aren't covered or that are partially covered. Take this back to the client to review, have a sit down with them, and then once you're done, arrange a recorded personalized demo either with the app or with one of the partners so that you've got evidence again of what it will cover, what it won't cover, and everyone's working on a nice clear platform of truth of what's going to happen and what isn't. And again, this goes back to that point of memory, right? You're going to now be a few weeks into this project. If it goes well, we're moving into a couple of months of implementation and training. So it's really important that everything's documented, that we can all have a shared understanding between everybody. Okay. Then once we think, right, the app covers it, Now we need to move into proof of concept testing. Your simple clients, those smaller clients, they'll usually find time to take out a trial, do it themselves. If they do want to work with someone more formally, find an implementation partner with that specific system that's the best fit. Anyone who's more complicated, they're going to want to do a more prolonged period of this. And by spending 20 hours or so at this stage, 10 to 20 hours, let's say, you can save yourself weeks of going down the wrong system. Proof of concept tours is now where it all comes together. We've mapped the processes, we've listed the requirements, we've assessed the suitability of the system, we've had a high-level demo. Now, how does that work with all of our order processes, all of our purchase processes, our different types of products, and so on? So in our paid scope and service like this, there's 2 phases to it, and it's sold as one section. So we have our free discovery session, then we charge a client for a scoping meeting, and included in that is a period of proof of concept. So we scope meeting, document everything, assess which system is going to be the best fit, have a demo, then move into full proof of concept work where we test everything out. And what you're doing here as well is we're not just testing, is this system a good fit anymore? Usually that's pretty much covered for these simple and complicated ones. Pretty clear this is going to be a good fit. But now we're setting those expectations of how it will work, what the processes will actually be, what people will be doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of it, and I'll be getting to your questions in a second, guys. So if you do have any more, fire them through. So what are some resources you can use? Obviously, you're getting the fact find form. I've spoken about the discovery call again, which is entirely free. You get to speak to us first before we even let you know if it's suitable for the client. And you've got the fact find form. Use social media groups. Our director, who many of you will know, Matt Flanagan, he has a fantastic Facebook group, all full of accountants like yourself that are kind of at this tip of the spear in app selection, and they're all sharing ideas. That's the App Advisory Group on Facebook. Find it, ask to join, and I think there's over 700 different members now, all sharing, helping each other out. It's fantastic. There's a lot of other great accountancy groups as well online, set up by different thought leaders in the space, and it's the best way for people like yourselves who are really at the front of this to go and find other people in other firms that are doing it. I think Matt ran a poll recently with his groups, or an offline poll, something along those lines, and found out that a really common feeling that everyone has is they feel really lonely in their firms, being the only person dealing with cloud and having these problems that all the different partners are probably sending you their complex stock clients and being like, hey, do you know an app for this? You're our app person, and you just don't know who to turn to. These social media groups on Facebook and LinkedIn are a great way for you to find fellow accountants to partner with, or not even partner with formally, but just make a friendship with and discuss these things. Another great resource is the Xero playbooks, and you can earn your badges. And this is something I actually just want to show you quickly. I've got it up on the line. So if you head to Xero resources, they have their playbooks here. And some of these are actually really strong. Obviously, the retail and e-commerce app playbook is more focused towards the sort of space we're looking at, as is hospitality, really. But if I just get this going now a second. What I like about this, and from looking through, it's just loading up now. Obviously, like, the branding of it's great, as they always do. It looks beautiful. But they give you a lot of nice high-level information, like who the apps are for, understanding your clients' businesses. Some of the cheat sheets have some use to them, but I really love like these explanation points of breaking down, an online retailer versus someone who's omni-channel. These are all going to be good understandings that help inform you and allow you to better facilitate these conversations with your clients, because essentially the beautiful position you've all got is your clients, and the good ones will see you as a broad business advisor, not just an accountant. And this helps you kind of position those conversations as just more of an app advisor. So yeah, really quite cool, really useful. And you can earn your badges, which also helps you win more clients and show off your expertise as well. So that's a really good resource. And now, not to get too negative, but there are a few resources that I really want to warn you about. And mainly there are these comparison grid style things, and I'll hold my hands up. We've actually produced comparison grids in the past, and we've done them for XG magazine, for our website. The reality of these things is there are two massive problems. One is they're easily out of date, and two, a simple tick next to a requirement does not cover the level of detail required. So in preparation for this, I went and reviewed GetApp as well as a couple of other comparison grids. And this was the first page that I found, just picked Deer at random. And it had this comparison between Deer, TradeGecko and Sin7, apps I know well. And there are countless errors on this page. I can't even begin to tell you how long it is. I'm really surprised that GetApp haven't received letters off these companies to update this. But I mean, access controls would usually mean user permissions. Deer certainly has this to a very decent level, at least the same level as Sin7 or TradeGecko. Activity dashboard, again, all of the apps, any of the product apps has this. That's not accurate to say that it doesn't. But also a real issue with this is you'll notice things like bill of materials analysis. That's just one level. That also says Sin7 can't do it, whereas Sin7 can manage not just bill of materials, but also sub-assemblies and generate production planning from it. So it's actually one of the more advanced bill of materials systems for the inventory apps. But one, it's incorrect to say that it doesn't have it. And two, it doesn't cover the full scope of what we now know about bill of materials. Is it a kit or is it a manufactured product? Is it a sub-assembly or is it just a single assembly? Is that something that's manufactured? And if so, are we using people and machines? This just can't be covered at this level of details. And just the other week, I was speaking to an accountant on the phone who referenced one of these, who I think they'd advised their client to go look at one of the systems and then was fearful they'd misadvised them. But then found out through a quick discussion that no, a lot of those features were covered. But these apps, or these sites, I honestly wouldn't even use for very simple apps. I just don't think you can be up to date enough with the rate that these apps are improving. Like Deer and Sin7 and TradeGecko, they're releasing new features every couple of weeks, as are all of these apps. And these websites just can't update it. And also it's just too high level. It doesn't go into enough detail like access controls. To what level can you restrict people's permissions? Can you do it per user? Is it per group? You know, all these different knock-on questions that you're going to see, right? So definitely avoid these. Like I would not use them in any level. Okay, so next part. Thank you all. I get some questions now. I've mentioned before our health checks that you can come take advantage of. You're going to receive a fact find. If you do want to take a deeper dive into the different types of apps or why businesses need these apps, we have a YouTube channel. If you just search Blue Hub, I think there's a few different Blue Hubs, but you'll see our round logo with the light blue and the dark blue things down here. And on there, we've got all our old webinars. So if you're not sick of hearing me talking to you about inventory apps and you're like, oh, I want a bit more of that, head over to our YouTube and we've got webinars with the apps. We've done one with Unleashed, Stephen at Unleashed. We've done one with Max at Deer. I've done deep dives into wholesalers. We've looked at purely Amazon sellers for Xero. That's by far our most popular video. So if you do have any clients that are struggling with Amazon and Xero, go and check that out because is really, people love it. So yeah, check out our YouTube, and anytime you need help, you want to chat to us for a second, you want to arrange a health check or a discovery call, just go to bluehub.co.uk. We've also got a gang of blogs there too. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the questions now. Feel free to send any more through. People ask me how I am. I'm very well. I've got a bit of a dry mouth, but other than that, I'm quite good. The session is being recorded, Sharon. So the session's recorded. It'll be put on our YouTube. You'll all get an email probably in a week or so, just letting you know that that's listed. You can share it with anyone else. You'll receive the slides too. You'll receive the fact find as well. So, a few people have said that they've had clients arrive or calls that have popped up during this. So as I've said, it's all recorded anyway. Everyone will get a copy. That seems to be the main thing. Which inventory solutions can you refer a client to? And they will provide all of the training and integration. So that the issue with that is all of the training and all of the integration. So apps that have a UK-based team, Unleashed and TradeGecko, out of the ones that I've spoke about so far. Unleashed are really now well set up to do a lot of their onboarding internally. It's why we no longer do a lot of direct or any implementations of Unleashed. That's something that they've catered for quite well themselves. So they will do that. They'll give some basic training. I don't know if they do on site or not, but in general, the actual giving basic onboarding, basic training, and we'll help them set up any native integrations. The key there, though, is like we've seen here, it's all about the business process and the business details itself. And often the people that are providing this training and providing the integration won't necessarily have as much of a deep business knowledge as yourselves or a software integrator. But they're two of the systems that do have a team in-house in the UK. Do you guys at Bluehub prefer to scope yourself? Yeah, at this stage we do. It's just, as we know the systems, once we know which system someone's likely to go towards, we're going to have more and more specific questions, right, to how that system responds. We say bill of materials, we'll get much more specific. So even when someone gives us a really detailed scope, rather than us needing to charge like 3 days to go and scope that client, likelihood is we'll just do a half day or a full day just to kind of build on the scope that the accountant or the business consultants provided us. But in general, we find it best to scope ourselves, again, because of the memory issue, right? It helps us keep the context if our team do it and our team do the onboarding, and it helps us just get a much better relationship with the business. But could I get a copy of the scoping document, please? Yeah, I'll check with that. I think we do have examples maybe on our sites. Anytime anyone gets a quote from us as well, we actually attach those examples to the quote. So when I'm putting forward a proposal to a client to do a scoping job and to do proof of concept, we attach to that proposal examples of those process documents and so on. It's a really useful tool because a lot of the time you guys might not come up against it as much, but we do. By having consultant in your title, people often think like, all right, so I'm just going to speak to this bloke and then he's just going to sail away. With this, we want to show them that no, you actually get something tangible, something useful, something that you can take and have a benefit from without us, right? Those requirements, grids, the gap analysis, the processes being mapped, all of that. Yeah, so what do you suggest the accountant, should charge the client for our involvement in this process? So you're all going to value your time differently. So I'll just tell you how much time you're likely to need. So for a more simple job, you're probably looking at like a day's worth of time between speaking to the client, doing some research off the back, document and stuff. A complicated client, you're probably looking at somewhere between 2-3 days worth of work. And then a complex client, it's like 4 to 6, maybe, you know, like that might be quite up there really. But they're the sort of time frames you can then add on to that. In general, people are charging somewhere between like $1,000 to $4,000 for a scope and proof of concept, something like that. That's a thank you. You're all welcome. How do you manage a client that have a short deadline? Just tell them they need to rethink. Yeah, Susie, essentially, yes. If they're a startup, they've got really low order volumes, probably you can get something in place quite quickly. But if they're an established business using an existing system, so any Sage migrations, any bespoke migrations, just tell them to wait and do not rush it. You'll just end up being a really high chance of mortality or churn, have a great deal of cost of a really angry client, and not be that willing to get into the next one. So do not rush this. Even people that come to us and say we want this ASAP, they nearly always fall in line with our 2 to 4 month time frame. So people just want to do what's best, right? And I find what's best to help people adjust that timeline is to bring in that you're going to be using a system, even in a startup, for like 3 to 5 years. Let's not rush it. Let's give ourselves a couple of months and make sure it's a good fit. How do we provide leads, phone call or email? Yeah, so very simple. You just go to our website, bluehub.co.uk, and then on there, there's a button that says apply for a call. We'll ask you a few basic questions just so we can map you up with the best person in our team and help out. So really simple, just bluehub.co.uk. Might load a bit slow because I'm also doing Zoom, but what you'll see on there is in the top right-hand corner, we have apply for a call. We then have a whole section for accountants. So you can use this to get one of our little online fact find forms to help facilitate maybe that initial conversation. So as soon as the client calls up, if you click an inventory client here, it'll actually take you through a high-level fact-find form to get a lot of those basic details off your client about the size, what they're looking for, their dates, their timeframes, what business sector they're in, all that kind of high-level details. This is quite useful to facilitate that first call and then booking one of the free discovery calls. If you fill this out as an accountant, you can let us know if you want us to speak to you directly first or chat to the client directly. It's entirely up to you. Yeah, a few people are getting in touch about actual clients as well. So anyone around that, I'll be in touch with. What are the rough costs for a simple client? So for scoping, like I said, they're down that lower end of the range. So scoping for a simple client, you're probably looking at like 1 to 2K. And then as far as implementation goes, it depends how hands-on they want us to be. Some people might just take us for half a day of training, it's like £1,000, let's say. And other people will want us to do everything, migrate the data, set up bespoke integrations, and then you can get into the low 5 figures for all that. But for scoping, we're not putting out any quotes even for our largest stuff, much over 4K. The majority of them, I think, around like 1,500 to 2K for our scoping jobs. Good. I think a few people have put questions in the chat as well, so I'm just going to have a quick look at that. Inventory systems that help with warranty and expiry date tracking. Dia is great for this. Obviously, you need to make sure it's suitable for their other stuff. But yeah, Dia has recently added within the last couple of months a whole warranty system in there, so that's pretty ideal. If you want to know more about it, Laura, you can get in touch via the website and I'll happily give you a personalised demo. Good stuff. And then lots of thank you. Great stuff, guys. So if anyone does have any questions, obviously you can reach out to me on social media. You can head to the website. My email is just guy.earnshaw@bluehub.co.uk. So feel free to get in touch or email inquiries@bluehub.co.uk. Take advantage of those free discovery sessions just to see how we do it right. This is all we do, is help people with inventory apps. So that's everything that I wanted to cover today. I hope you all have a fantastic and productive week. You're all welcome for the ones saying thank you. And yeah, it means a lot that you'd all take time out of your day to sit and listen to me. And I'm sorry for all the times I punched the microphone because I bet that was really annoying. So thank you all for your help. Thank you for the kind words. And don't hesitate to reach out to us if you want any help. Take care. Bye.